seen it. I mean, I knew he was going up there, but I haven't seen it. Was he any good?
We're rolling.
This is the business podcast.
Hey,
it was a first. I mean, it's tough.
I do know.
It's tough. Well, and that's why I never fall in the trap. I mean, people for years, right?
Right.
Some people associate me with being funny.
Right.
But that doesn't translate. Like, oh, Mosley, you should do stand-up.
Right.
And a lot of people get bought into their head because they're funny with their friends or whatever. That makes for, but you've studied stand-up. Right. I mean, there's a technique involved in that whole process. You got to know. You got to know what you're doing. Well, you can't just freestyle. Unless, here's the thing I think is funny about that is there are people, like, once you have a reputation, like, there are comedians I've seen that people laugh at for some inherent reason. I don't know why the music's still playing, but the podcast has started. But there seems to be an inherent reason where I see people just laugh. Even if it's not like they're just with the comedian in a way that they're finding things funny that maybe aren't. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I can. There's a whole psychology to that.
Okay, hold on. Before you get there, this is the Grow Business Podcast. I'm your host, Cory Mosley. I'm having an insightful, deep-thoughted, very philosophical conversation with the guy in the chair next to me. If you're not watching on YouTube, this is very thin, astute gentleman. Next to me, LG 007's in the building. Lon Graham's here.
Voice of reason.
And the guy starting out the gate, I don't know what he was doing earlier. Music, I don't know what, it was tapering off. I don't know what's happening, but fortunately for us, I guess, Willie H is here.
Hit the buttons, William.
Now, we were enthralled in a deep discussion before I wanted to get the opening out of the way, talking about stand-up comedy, comedians, things of that nature. And we were just talking about, you were getting ready to weigh in because you have done stand-up and pursued learning to do that.
Yes.
And we were saying being situated, we were saying people probably heard it because they started play on the podcast. But I was talking about, if you didn't hear over the music, we were talking about, people being told they're funny and then thinking they can just go to stand-up and then it doesn't work out. But I want you to finish your thought about the technique. How do you translating that piece too of being funny naturally, but now having a bit or a set that's funny?
Well, and there's two things. One is the being funny in real time is often situational, and it's more improv type funny than it is stand up, because when you're funny, you're making comments about things that are going on and you're witty. And it's caught up in that moment, right? Whereas stand-up is structured comedy, and it's based on misdirection and interpretation. And so the next thing that you said is that there are people that are famous that will say something.
Like you're just laughing because that's not just, so let me get your thought on it. This has nothing to do with small business growth, by the way, guys. Just hang in there. Because that's an interesting conversation. But I thought it was, so for example, and you do this, you've done this with me.
Yes.
Because it's not just about being a celebrity. It's just, I think it's just about people that we inherently believe are going to be funny.
Right.
I will get ready to say something with people around me.
Right.
And even people who don't know, I mean, like, maybe I'll just, and they will start to like laugh.
Right.
And I haven't even gotten the thought out. Like, it's almost like they know something's coming. But I've seen comedians where it's just like anything they say is funny.
Yes. And it's a familiarity piece. And here's so we'll start with you and me, right? We've known each other for 6-7 years, however long we've known each other. We've worked together. We do this. And we socialize together. We have a familiarity with each other.
People still come up to me. I was at a networking event. Willie H hit something. I was at a network. You got something.
The pain.
I was at a networking event. See, he's not ready. You got to be ready. He's trying to figure out what he's going to hit.
Right.
Hit the buttons, William. Huh? What do you got? You got anything? Okay. Today? Hit it. Oh, yeah, but that was the drop point right there. Like I was at a networking event. Yeah. I mean, shout out to all the lovely people I met. I was at a networking event, and somebody. I'm talking to somebody, and they're like, "Yeah, I know Lon Graham works with you." like I work for Lon Graham. Like, oh yeah, I know Lon Graham. I'm like, oh okay, good. You didn't buy anything because you're not on my roster. Lon Graham didn't close you on anything, exactly but you met him. That's good. I'm sorry. Go ahead. It made me think about that because you're known near and far.
Yeah. So going back to the laughter piece, so there's a familiarity. So there's an expectation of what's coming. And so when you go to see somebody who is known,
like a Chappelle, like a Dave Chappelle,
you expect him to say things that you already have heard him say, or as he sets things up, you prepare for him to be funny. Yeah. And so you'll start to laugh.
I like that, preparing for somebody to be funny.
Yeah. And so when we're talking and you're going down a road that you and I have been down before, I don't necessarily know what you're going to say, but I know enough about your thoughts on it that I can,
it's going to be outrageous.
I can anticipate that it's going to be fun. So I'll start to, I'll warm up, but it's an anticipation of funny.
Yeah.
And so when, going back to, what started this conversation, somebody that we know that, good for him, gone up and did a stand up in New York.
Yeah.
And, talking about a place to break in. But the structure of comedy there is a true structure of stand up.
Yeah.
And it is misdirection, misalignment. You're setting somebody up to think one thing, and what's funny is you go in a different direction.
Right.
And so if you don't know somebody already and you're not anticipating them to be funny, then you wait for them to deliver that punchline. Here's the other thing too, and this is where it ties into speaking. There's a familiarity with stories, with ideas, with connection. And when you connect with somebody, that's why the first story that you tell when you're speaking, or the first thing that comes out of your mouth when you're speaking, is what you get to either connect with somebody or not. Same thing. You tell your second best joke first.
Right.
Because you want people to laugh. I promise you, I've done stand-up where I tried something new first, and it didn't work, and I was done. They didn't laugh at anything. Right. And they were things that I know were funny because other people have laughed at them. But it's how do you set it up and structure it? So there's, going back to bringing it all together, is you can be funny in real time because it's situational and you're responding to situations that people are in.
Right. When
you're doing stand-up, you have to create that situation for them, and it becomes very hard. Or not hard, but it takes practice and preparation.
It's tough. I think I'm going to do an improv. I think those are just things that improv, all those things strengthen you.
Oh, 100%.
As a speaker and like are just different modalities to be more, extemporaneous. Having said that, today's topic has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
We're 5 minutes
Folks, if you're just joining us, we appreciate you spending some time. If you have come back week after week, you already know kind of our antics here. But what you may not be familiar with is that we fashioned this show based on my 5 pillars of business growth. I believe all business growth issues fall within one of the 5 pillars. That's people. What is it? Do you know?
Yeah. People, operations, marketing, sales, and I forget the last one.
Oh, come on. How do you forget the last one?
Because I'm...
Willie H even knows.
I don't even know what to think.
Willie H even knows. All right, you got to put them. Well, we'll put them in order. They're also in order for a reason. So it's mindset, sales, marketing, operations, and people.
Oh, so I jumped the first
now,
one.
Now, LG007, you can't be on the Grow Business podcast and our Promoting Position for Growth book.
Right.
Available at CoryandLon.com, also shipping on Amazon.
Right.
And not know the 5 pillars.
Sometimes I need a blinker, Corey. Sometimes I need you to tell me that you're changing lanes.
And you're going to fall under one of these things that we're talking about today. We're talking about do you want to guess the pillar that we're talking about today?
Yeah, let's say sales.
Okay. It's not that.
Okay.
For those that don't believe, you don't know what's going on. It's true, you guys. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on.
Even once we get started.
Yeah, sometimes even once we get started. We are talking. You want to take one more stab at it?
So I said sales. Yep. Let's talk about mindset.
Okay, not talking about that either.
Okay.
We are going to be talking about the people pillar today.
Okay, great.
The people pillar.
Yeah.
And apparently, based on your failure to identify the 5 pillars today, we'll be talking about you in a certain section of our conversation today.
Sounds good.
So more specifically, we're talking about the pillar of people, but we're talking about the trainable, coachable, replaceable approach to developing employees.
Okay.
Because it's a very simple and easy way. Because for a lot of small business owners, they don't have the luxury of big HR departments,
right?
Sophisticated, PIP plans,
right?
Performance improvement plans for my corporate folks out there, and all of these strategies. But they need to have some kind of course of action.
Right.
And this is not a conversation. So full disclosure, this is not an HR conversation.
No.
This is not a how to deal with people or technical or anything legal or write-ups or anything like that. We're talking about the idea of someone being your responsibilities, their responsibilities. So someone being trainable, someone being coachable, and then after you reach that, taking the steps towards replacing that person.
Sure. Okay.
Because all too often I see the wrong people hang out way too long, way past the expiration date.
Right.
And that goes back to simple things that I learned a long time ago, like hire slow, fire fast. Right. Which is another quick one just to think about.
Right.
Because I see a lot of people over the last 20 years do the reverse.
Yeah.
They hire the first person who's got a heartbeat.
Right.
I remember former client telling me one time, I just need people to come in sober.
Ooh. Wow. Okay. That's a good place to start.
Walk-ins welcome.
Right. That's a good place to start.
It's like a salon. Walk-ins welcome to get hired. So they do the reverse. They're like, oh, this person, I like this person. They sold me the pen.
Right.
Right? They're hired.
Right.
Then they become a disaster.
Right.
And then they just overstay their welcome. Where if you really took the reverse of it and went through that process, I think things work out better than that. So the next step of hire slow, fire fast is now what happens in between. And that's the trainable, coachable, replaceable piece that we're going to talk about today. What are your thoughts when you think about, something like that?
Yeah, I think we try and do too much at one time is what I think. And one of the things I've learned is when here's the thing. First of all, you have to decide, do you want to keep this person, and are they capable of doing the things that you want and need them to do?
Right.
So you've got to decide those first. I think if you like the person, you want to keep them, and you think that they're capable of doing the things that you want and need them to do, then you give them one thing at a time to get better at.
Right.
Well,
the 5 pillars.
Like the 5 pillars, right? Yeah, exactly.
Training.
That's exactly
now we're
right.
coaching.
Now
we're coaching.
Like encouraging.
See that yellow highlighter over there. Go ahead.
But I think what we try and do is you talked about a PIP plan. I think what we try and do is we try and say, okay, here are the things we want you to get better at, expecting them to get better at everything at once. And that's unrealistic.
Well, and also I think in the small business environment, because that's so broad, right?
Right.
You can still have 100 employees, make it sold a small business. But
correct.
When we think about more micro businesses,
right.
I believe some of the more corporate-esque techniques are just not comfortable for the average business owner.
Right.
Like, because you're in too close proximity.
Right.
So you've got to, I'm going to put Willie H on a PIP.
Right.
Like, I'm going to sit down on a piece of paper. I don't think that's going to handle it. I'm going to go over and say, you're messing up.
Right.
Dude.
Right.
That bad.
That bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's what we need to do.
Right.
Again, I'm sure my HR friends are like, it doesn't matter how big the business is, you big or small, you still need to, follow these things. But I just don't think I'm pulling out a PIP plan.
Well, the point of it is
PIP slap.
Right.
Oh, wait, excuse me. I'm sorry. Sometimes you got to shake those people. Just kidding, folks. Just Kidding. Shake them good. All right.
Hold on, Buckaroo.
Willie H., you ever been shook, shaken, not stirred? Go ahead, LG. What are you saying? We haven't gotten to one bullet point yet. Go ahead.
And we might next week. It's really more about the content and giving the person an opportunity to get better. You talk about small business owners, especially, and I call it living with somebody, right? When you work with somebody every day, you're essentially living with them.
Yeah.
And when you're living with somebody, you got to be a little bit more delicate as to how you work together and how you communicate. Whereas you get corporate, you create a little bit of space. You're not necessarily living together every day.
Right.
You can do these performance improvements plans, these more structured things. The key really is the content. What are you telling them that you like about what they're doing, and what are they doing well? And what are you telling them that you want them to get better at? And are you giving them something as an aspiration to say, this is what better looks like? And so it's how do you communicate that if you're in a small business and your small business is 5 people and you live together every day, well, you got to figure out how to communicate that with the desired outcome on the table. And I think that's really the key.
All right, so let's talk about that. So step 1, set the foundation, right? So obviously it's hard to move somebody through a trainable, coachable, replaceable model if you have not, defined the key roles and responsibilities, right? Correct. People clearly knowing what they're doing.
Right.
And, that, again, I go back to the small business environment, which in many ways is a, situation where people may have to do startups, small business. People may have to do multiple jobs. You don't have the luxury of saying, this is just my job, right? It may be, and I will tell you historically, anybody who's worked in my organization always leaves with way more skills than they came in with.
Right.
They know how to do a lot more things. Willie H. is not in his head. They know how to do a lot more things than they came in with, right? So by necessity, by whatever the course, whether exposed to more things, they learn new things, specifically. Learn things about themselves, and learn things about their capabilities that maybe they didn't even know. So, but having those key roles and responsibilities, even if you're adding a new responsibility, right? Having that conversation and making that clear, what that looks like from our roles and responsibilities. Also, what are the critical skills?
Right.
What are you understand is going to be part of the training process versus what types of basic things you should be able to do, right?
Right.
Going into that is important.
Well, and I think one of the things that small business owners, or small business owners and people in small businesses, and again, it could be up to 50 people. When you're asking people to do multiple things, what's important is giving them a priority list, helping them understand what are the most important things. So I'm going to ask you to do a lot of things, but here are the things that are most important that I need to make sure that you do first.
Right.
And because as an owner, you sometimes come in with your hair on fire and say, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to do this. And the person needs to be able to say, okay, I'm willing to do that, but what do you want me to give up to do it? Like, what am I sacrificing immediately if what you're telling me needs to be done immediately?
Right.
And so that's part of how do we prioritize the responsibilities?
Well, but you're saying that from an employee perspective.
Well, I'm saying that the employer, the owner needs to be able to do that.
Okay.
So, because if the employee doesn't understand that, you're going to be frustrated that the employee is not doing the things you think are important.
Willie H.
Voice of reason.
I know you have lunch because I was there. So is that? I don't know if that's post lunch-itis kicking in.
And you better believe
he was ready for that.
I have to starve people out now. I was watching this. Have you ever watched the show The Diplomat? It's a Netflix show.
Kerry Russell?
Yeah.
I've seen pieces of it.
The second season. I haven't seen the second season yet, but my wife wanted us to watch the show together. So in order to do that, I had to binge watch the first season to be properly prepared. But there's a scene in season 1 where they're all huddled up with the prime minister is there.
Okay.
And he's not getting the answers he wants from the leadership team that's in the room. So someone suggested they break for lunch.
Okay.
He said, that's a great idea. I'm going to break for lunch, and none of you in this room eat until you get some better ideas coming out of this room. And then he goes off and leaves and goes to this big spread that's set up in, the palace that they're meeting in, and is just imbibing in, all types of cheeses and vintage wines. And they're in the room starving because no one. So that might be a new technique to keep Willie H. Willie H might be too comfortable now. Like the sugar's kicked in, the carbs are kicking in. And now he's tight on the buttons.
Right. Did y'all go to the Waffle House?
No, well, we're trying to get them as a sponsor. So yeah. Shout out to the Waffle House.
From a previous episode.
That's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, if you didn't check that, this is your first episode of us. You're going to have to go back to the archives and listen to the other ones.
Right, exactly.
All right, so number 2, to have a trainable, coachable, replaceable model, you have to make the roles trainable.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
So now this is important, particularly if you're a smaller organization, because these are steps that get skipped over. You go into big corporations, they have training systems. We've developed several learning management systems for clients to put people at scale through training, right?
Correct.
Multiple locations, these things. You've got a four employee business, a 9-employee business. A lot of that goes out of the window. Now you're lucky if you have a handbook, right?
You're right.
But now it's like, what is the structure to train, right? What is the developed training program? Is there any type of shadowing or mentorship that is a part of that process? And then also, this is an interesting one, an internal knowledge base.
Okay. What do you mean when you say that?
Meaning, so, you've ever had a situation where somebody's like asked you the same question over and over again?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right? So it's kind of like what a corporation do. If you go to like the help or support of a lot of these SaaS companies, right? It's the FAQ thing, right? So these are the million different things people ask about. What's the routing number to the bank? Like you don't need to call customer service and type customer service for that because it's there. So this is kind of the same thing. What are the how-to guides? What are some things that you can maybe put on video? Right? That are commonly asked questions inside your organization. Now, that only works if you've identified the roles and responsibilities, because now you can predict what some common questions and FAQs that may come up would look like.
Yeah. I mean, those are after the initial training people, the initial people that you hire, because then you start to identify what do we need to make sure that the people coming into our organization know. And some of that's roles and responsibilities, and some of that is how you get paid, some of the administrative pieces of it too.
But I mean, I think that's in the HR packet.
Assuming you have one.
How you get paid, when you get paid. I mean, those are some fundamentals, right?
Yeah, that was the first one that came to my mind. Okay. But where do you? So to your point,
what's going on with you today too? Everybody's brains in. Didn't know the five pillars over here. He's got 3.5 pillars. Like it's only 5. LG. I mean, it's not the 48 laws of power, and you need to know all of them over here.
Well, you got me started talking.
What's that extra one? I'm struggling here.
What's that extra one? 3.5.
We've been through. We've been through most of them there.
We've talked about all of them. Yeah.
Okay, so training program, mentorship, knowledge base. I mean, it's well documented. I come from the auto industry,
right?
And that's just one of the places where training. Like the idea, and I come from training, but the conversations I would have with people about training, or about investing in training, were really, I have to be honest, some simple-minded conversations.
Okay.
Like the idea of doing it or investing in it or whatever. Like I can't imagine. I mean, one of the worst things has to be a poorly trained employee.
Yes.
In whatever that world is, or to take the quote unquote laziest version. So I'm like, you notice when we talked about this in step 2, make roles trainable, it was multi-pronged, right? It wasn't just follow Al for the week.
Right.
And then you should be good to go.
Right.
Like there was one of my first jobs was at a company called Hex.
Yeah.
Which went on to become Macy's. But like before I worked the men's polo counter, which is very apropos for me to get started out. But they didn't just put me on the register and let me start banging on keys. You had a whole room in the back with 30 registers set up where you had to train on doing returns and all these different scenarios before they let you touch the register.
Right.
Like, they didn't just say, here's Linda, she's going to be your shadow person. Right. But it's comprehensive.
Well, and they teach you multifaceted.
Yeah.
And especially when you're asking people to do multiple roles, multiple touch points, people learn differently. So you got to give them different, information in different ways. So you talk about the register, then you also talk about customer engagement where you practice when somebody approaches the counter, what are the steps that you go through? What are the things that you ask them before you start ringing? And those are all things that they did to train you. And so to your point, it's in your small business. And one of the challenges in this conversation when we're talking about people is one person could be listening to us with 5 people, one person could be listening to us with 50 people in their organization. So there's going to be a range of where you are in your training and development already.
That's right.
But you want to make sure that you give people different ways to learn. You want to deliver information in different ways. 1, interactive, 2, self-study, 3, communication, touch point, and then 4, getting them to present and give you that information back. But you need to have at least a set of information that you want them to know by the time that they start working so that they know what they need to do when these situations arise. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, 100%. And again, it's that proactive, it's that proactive strategy, because if you don't do this, many times what you end up with, that's how you end up in the rescue hire scenario.
Right.
Where you simply believe you're hiring somebody that's going to come in and say that they need to know everything already, so you don't have to train. Right. Well, what do I need? If I knew how to market, what do I need? But again, you might not be hiring me to come in. You might be hiring me to come in for marketing. Well, you may not be able to train me on that, but you can facilitate my training on that, right? Correct. You can invest in my training on that. You can, though, properly train me on how the business that I'm going to be doing the marketing for works and operates. Who are our customers? You can inform me of those things. I mean, I talk to business owners and I ask simple questions like ideal customer. Right. I mean, like that. What's fascinating to me is the amount of people you can have that conversation with, and it's like a breakthrough. Right. And they've been in business for years. Right. Right. It's not a correlative thing. Right. 15-year business owner. So who's your ideal customer? and then like sometimes when they answer it, it's so wide, it's not even an answer. Right. Or it's the person that just bought from them. Right. Like, oh, well, that's my... Oh, well, we service 0 to 100 million. Right. Exactly. Startup to 4th generation company. Like, I mean, it's just too broad. Like, how can you show me when I look at marketing like that also, right. It tells me that. Well, yeah, but that's a fear driver. Not to get too far off, because that's very easy for us to get in the other direction. Right. But it's a fear. It's a fear that you may miss somebody. Right. And I'm constantly fascinated as I enter different markets, as we see different clients from different markets. Just talk to a law firm, and there's a lot of niche players in that space in like marketing and advertising, all those things. Right. And they were telling me like about some of what they were paying, how much they were paying for services. It's like 2x what we would do. Right. But they weren't getting 2x worth of results, worth the outcomes, right? But it was all because it's all because like that company had niche, right? They have a specialization, and for a lot of ways, specialization isn't always knowledge of a particular industry. It's just a chosen model to target a chosen industry, right? Oh, we build websites for law firms. That doesn't mean you know the legal industry better than someone. That just means you have created a specialty or targeted specialty, which has its pluses or minuses. Right. Depends on what side of the fence you are, right? So, that's true. Right, there are things in the automotive industry that are very universal across all businesses. Right. So that was the logic in terms of being able to have an impact. It's sales and marketing, fill in the blank. Now, if you're trying to sell the blank, then, oh, well, my specialty in that area or my deep understanding in that area now is of value to you. So even niche markets and the idea of niching is subjective based on how well you can spin.
Well, how will you communicate that message, right?
Yeah, I call 100%. It spin. You call it communicate,
right.
Which is a different version of spin, right?
Indeed. Yes, it is.
Come on, nothing? Woo. All right. First say amen. I'm begging here for this guy to do his job today.
Well, that steakhouse lunch is a big deal.
Yeah, slow down. Hold on, Buckaroo. Far away from that.
Bringing it back.
What number do you like?
Right. Exactly. You want large fries?
Gee, we don't. LT, you want people to think we charge too much over here? Come on now. We split a meal. Sip and pass.
A happy meal because we want to be happy.
Go ahead. Where you make your point?
Bringing it back though to what we're talking about, people, and we're talking about the organizational knowledge. You may be hiring somebody to do the marketing because you don't have the expertise in marketing. But what you talked about was organizational knowledge. And how do you train people in the organizational knowledge so that when they get into their marketing role, they can effectively represent the organization? And that is, who's your ideal client? Where do you target? Where are the people? Where are you getting clients from? Where are you going after clients from? Who do you want to stay in your lane? Do you want to expand your lane? Right. All of those things. But that's the organizational knowledge that you need to train somebody coming into the organization so that then they can effectively communicate and spin your message.
Yeah, 100%. All right, that's 2. Let's go to 3. 3 is now what? No,
we're on 3.
Yeah, we're on 3.
Okay.
We did.
No. Oh. I'm like, we're 20 minutes in.
Oh, we're going good. No, this is good. This isn't a long. I mean, this isn't. Yeah.
Okay.
We're on the express train today.
We're not doing
people
want to
part 2. Get in, get on, get off. Yeah, boom. Yeah, we're not going to part. Yeah, those days are over. 3 part. Well, I never say never, but okay. Number 3 is establish a coaching culture. Yes. Right. So to have a trainable, coachable, replaceable model, you've got to have a coaching model built in. Right. So open communication. One-on-ones with regularity. See, I think the other thing where people get where issues happen is we wait till there's an issue to communicate.
Yes.
So if we're communicating all along, it also to me is less jarring in an engagement with whether an employee or a contractor, or freelancer, all those different things. Right. We've made some additions to our editing team.
Okay.
We've added some people. So everybody's kind of got to go through because when you're adding, you're also adding in circumstances where there's work pending, so you need to add. Right. So that causes you to shortcut sometimes.
Okay.
Because it's like, all right, great, you're on here.
Right.
But then you still got to go through the process, right, of how do we do things here? How does our production work? What are the timelines? How do we, how is this supposed to look? It needs to match the other elements of our brand.
Correct.
Right? So there's still those nuances. And then you're like, and I've had this conversation with Willie H., who's, in charge of this team.
Right.
And I've said, are we being unreasonable?
Yeah.
Before we go back and say X, Y, Z, or before we cut somebody loose. It's the same. I mean, again, we're living the conversations that we're having, or we're not having retro conversations. LT and I are not here back in the day, we used to real, this stuff is things that I'm applying right now. Trainable culture, we're applying that to our editing team right now.
Correct.
Who are we coaching through our process? Who's taking too much of our time?
Right.
That's going beyond what we can give to that process.
Right.
So we're applying that same thing. But if we weren't communicating regularly, we like this, we don't like this, let's communicate on that. That becomes more fluid than nothing. Boom, you're doing these 10 things wrong.
Correct. Right. It becomes all about what you're doing wrong and not about the development of the person. And that's really the great message, Cory, is if you have it structured and you have it consistent, then it is part of building and developing that person. If you come to that person when they do something wrong and you say, hey, you're doing this wrong, then all they're doing is wrong and they're not going to stick around for very long. And in your mind, the only things that they're doing are wrong too.
Right.
It's not just that they feel like they're doing it wrong. You think well, every time I talk to this person, they're doing something wrong. Well, it's because that's the only time you talk to them.
Right.
But here's the thing too, Cory, we'll go back to the
no news is good news. That was old school management.
Right.
No news was good news. If your supervisor, your boss was not talking to you, everything was fine.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work now.
Yeah. Oh, go to the, we need to see you upstairs. Oh, Lord.
Right. That's exactly right.
Right.
And, going back to your auto industry example, developing a program, you would never get in a car without any gas. You put gas in the car before it runs out. Why wait until there's a problem when the gas tank's empty? Why are you waiting until there's a problem to have this conversation, to develop it?
You ever run out of gas?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have.
I have.
How'd you let that happen?
I just wasn't paying attention.
Oh, there's like a light that beeps there.
Remember, I'm a little older than you.
It says that. Oh, you didn't have gas lights?
We may have. We may have had a meter.
No needle at all.
I had a needle.
It was just touching you to self-count with a compass.
Right. I had a gauge.
Okay.
I had a gauge.
I mean, the F and the E's been around a long time, even longer than you. I gotta imagine, LG.
Right, but
the Model T had an F and an E.
But now it makes noise. Now it tells you. So you have to pay attention.
I'm not. I've run out of gas too.
The reason that they have beepers and noise and bells,
is because people didn't look natural.
That's exactly right.
I'm waiting for Siri to start. I have yet. Is there a car that does that? I wonder.
What's that?
Running out of gas. I've never heard one that talks to you.
No, I mean, there's one.
I mean, it pops up on the screen and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
right.
yeah. But I've never had Siri talk to you. If you have a car that Siri tells you running out of gas, get gas, dummy.
Right, exactly.
I wanted something. This should be an abrasive mode on Siri. Well,
it goes from now's a good time to you better do it now.
I mean, you got to appeal to that segment of the people that like to be talked to rude.
Right.
Like there's people that like to be talked to rudely.
Well, that's all they know, right?
I was watching. I used to love the show Las Vegas.
Yeah,
that was on years ago.
James Caan.
Yeah, James Caan. R.I.P. James Caan. But there was an episode. Ed Begley Jr. was guest starring, and when he came in, his casino host character named Sam Marquez.
Yes.
And I've got a table for you, and we've got dinner. I can get you tickets. And he's like, no, I don't want you.
Right.
She goes, sir, I can get you anything you need. Oh, this is terrible. And then she figured it out somehow, that being nasty. You know what you're gonna do, sir? You're gonna get over there and you're gonna play blackjack till I tell you to go. And he's like, oh yes, ma'am. So there needs to be like an abrasive mode to that there.
For sure. And that was a great show too.
It was. I watch it. It took forever for it to go into syndication.
Yeah.
So now, but I watch it. I love it.
James Caan and Cheryl Ladd.
It was like I kept a CD player just for that because I had it on DVD.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And they hadn't made it available for 15 years. It took like forever. So anyway.
Yeah.
The coaching, because when you have open communications, you're doing one-on-ones, like, you're setting some goals. You've got to, I believe you have a responsibility as an employer to be able to say you did everything you could before you move to the replaceable stage.
Okay.
I was having a conversation with my nephew, and you're trying to give the young ones guidance in their early adulthood years. Sometimes it's just glassy eyed, it's going. But I made him repeat something the other day. And I made him repeat back to me that I said, you will never be able to say, no matter what you decide to do with your life or how it turns out, which will be your decisions, you'll never be able to say that your uncle did not try to help you.
Right.
So I made him recite that back.
Right.
That I will never say that my uncle did not try to help me or give me advice. Right. And that holds true in employee land.
Right.
I believe you have to be able to say, it cannot be, it just, because people love to go, it just didn't work out.
Right.
And not take any responsibility.
Correct.
That's like a salesperson blaming the customer or everything. They didn't buy because they weren't a real buyer. They weren't serious. They weren't this. They couldn't afford. They couldn't whatever.
Right.
And they don't turn that mirror around and go, what steps, maybe you didn't communicate effectively. Maybe you talked to them in a way that wasn't, endearing to the sale, or maybe you talk past the sale. Like, we don't want to take responsibility.
Right. Where did I miss? And the thing as an owner to this is an extension of your point, Cory. The thing as an owner is you need to give the people on your team, give your employees an idea of what success looks like.
Right.
So that they can understand what they're striving for. Because if it's that water bug, right? If it's a moving target, then they're never going to be good enough.
Right. Sure.
So you got to give them a clear perspective on this is what success looks like.
Yeah. No, I like that. Now also, so in that model, we do want to test and iterate. Okay. So we basically did this earlier. And your grade wasn't all that great. But conduct regular knowledge audits.
There you go.
Right? Assess an employee's understanding of their roles, critical tasks, so you can identify training gaps, right? So, the next test next week will be LG007. Introduce them to the 5 pillars.
Right.
Somebody needs to read Position for Growth, now available on CoryMosley.com and also shipping from Amazon.
Correct.com
in stores or available online. So you've got to conduct a knowledge audit, right? Factor how the teams are in, collect feedback.
Yes.
Collect feedback so you can again, it goes back to the simply passing the test. Did I do everything I could do as an employer to ensure the success or give every opportunity to this person?
Correct.
Because you can't have people, everybody in some way is always kind of training on the job, but you can't do that at scale.
Right.
You can't have a customer service agent who's training on the job at your peril.
Right.
Because that's dollars and cents going out the window.
Correct. And you have to have, and what you're talking about, Cory, is a foundational level of knowledge about the organization and about the role so that you can build on that. But you've got to establish this is what we expect from a foundational knowledge of the organization, of the role, of how you do things, how we do things, and then you can build on that over time. But you got to start somewhere. And what you're talking about is, did I give this person a strong foundation to build on?
Mm-hmm.
This might be a guy I want to work with.
And of course, you're coming to these terms, you're coming to replaceability or making decisions, based on, right, metrics, how they're doing, how you're evaluating them. And sometimes that, again, I'm not doing an HR console here, but sometimes that's on paper. And then sometimes that's simply your observation as the business owner or the executive in charge of that employee or that situation. Adaptability, resiliency, positioning yourself for growth. Happens to be the name of the book. All of those things drive that idea.
Correct.
And the final thing I think about replacing someone is also determining that doesn't always mean they need to be out of your organization.
Correct.
One of my favorite commercials back in the day on Sirius Radio, it was an ad for some kind of like business store or build your own business or something.
Okay.
But I always remember the ad, and he said, and the premise or kind of how it went was, if I asked you who would win in a race between the recent, Tour Le Mans winner and a 13-year-old, you would obviously tell me the professional, cyclist.
Right.
But if I then said the professional cyclist was going to be on a tricycle and the 13-year-old was going to be on a 10-speed, then who would win?
Right.
Right? So it becomes about the vehicle that dictates the outcome. So do you have someone in your organization who maybe wasn't successful in marketing or in sales or logistics or customer service that could be a dynamo in these other areas, right? They're not good with, you hired them from customer service, they're not great with people, but they're great in the back office.
Right.
They're really great project managers. They're very organized.
Right.
So that becomes those opportunities, to not just say, hey, replaceable, if you have a large enough organization, is it a better vehicle for somebody to be in?
Right.
Or not before you make that move? But you've got to make that move if you've properly gone through a trainable and coachable model.
If there's nothing else left, you got to make that move. You can't sit on it because all you're doing.
Move right now, baby. You got to make that move. I know you're well cultured. I know you're well cultured in the black music scene there, LG.
I want to say that's either like the Drifters or the Whispers, or who is that?
Yeah, don't ask me that question.
Because I know the song, right? But it's, I saw
Willie H is looking it up now.
I saw the Whispers in concert.
He's going to ping me. Did you?
I did.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me at all.
I saw Lakeside and the Whispers in the same concert.
Okay, look at that.
A Fantastic Voyage.
Shalimar.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make that move.
It would have taken me a long time to get there, but
I love this is one of the things I love about the podcast. or like it being Cory Mosley's podcast. Is I can do whatever. No one can tell me I can't sing. I know I'm not a good singer, but it doesn't matter. Because at any spontaneous moment, I can break out in song.
Right.
That's why you are the best. I love it. All right. I think we covered it. I think we covered it for the people. If you were in a position, if you're a solopreneur, have a more micro business, and these are still notes to be had here. These are still things, because these are principles that if you want to build a great freelancer team, I've had freelancers that have been working for me for 6-7 years now. Right. That just doesn't happen in a lot of places. Correct. Just in terms of how do you maintain that, and particularly if you're working with freelancers overseas. Right. So, I try to stay connected in a way. We know the children, we know the children's age. Right. We get baby pictures, we have videos. Lon, you've been in the office where we've done happy birthday videos for some of our freelancers and sent it to them. So it's a small thing that creates goodwill, creates loyalty, creates those opportunities. So don't think, oh, well, Cory, I don't have any formal employees. You don't have to have formal employees. Right. Because you are working with people in your business. There's no man's an island, as they say. So you're working, if you're finding success in your business, there's somebody else involved. Right. That you want to have. I have coaching clients that remember my birthday, send me stuff. Right. From her, and I have people I've have clients who I've made a lot of money that have never sent me a thank you note. Right. Now their argument may be they pay their retainer, right? So, but have never extended any type of
hasn't gone beyond that. Yeah, transaction.
You think I'm bitter about it? You think do I sound bitter about it? But no, I just find it interesting, right? And just in terms of people's outlook. So relationships in that working capacity, have a lot of variation. They do. That's possible, but it all matters. So again, you don't have to have 100 employees to take value from what Lon and I were talking about today.
That's 100% right. Yeah. And the big thing too, Cory, that the underlying premise of what we're talking about is consistency. Are you doing these things regularly? Whether you've got 2 people, 5 people, or 50, these are things that you need to do regularly, and you need to have a structure and a plan for it. And that's how you establish this consistency. And consistency creates community, and community creates sustainability.
I like it. Okay.
Not that much.
Willie H, give yourself a thumbs down today. What do you give a button for yourself over there? Because he didn't even have a button ready. Right. I'm trying to end the podcast. Can you hit a button?
Suck it.
Yeah. Are you saying that to folks? We're going to need the bagpipes for Willie H. Burn, 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 because he may not make it. All right, before I get out of here, again, Position for Growth, new book in stores now. And here's the other thing. Great message. Lon and I appreciate all your listeners and viewers, but I do need to get something clear. Because, Lon, you don't have to get these emails. I get these emails. Okay. If you've and this is how I know people these people are not really viewers or listeners of the show. Okay. What you will notice on occasion, this is not a guest-driven podcast. Right. I get emails every week of people pitching to be a guest on the podcast. And I try to be polite and respond, say, hey, we're not a guest-driven podcast. This is kind of a personality-driven podcast. Now, you may see somebody in the guest chair if LG is on vacation or, I don't know, decides you don't want to show up or has Ebola or something. There's been instances where we've had some special guests for the ages like Ebola. That's my go-to for shock and awe. But this is not a driven. So please, if you are a agency who's pitching your guests, or you're somebody and they all start out with the form that, particularly love the episode on insert the blank. I mean, I like we've talked about cold emails. I like a good template like the Nest guy, I suppose. But it's not a guest platform. So I don't know, at some point we want to change that. Maybe we'll explore that. Probably not, because it's a whole nother.
Well, you've already done that, like we talked about before. You've already done that format, and that's a hard.
Well, once I can do like the big boys do, and take commercial breaks and pivot for a minute. Thanks, Lon. You might have noticed I'm drinking out of this water. This is super water, sponsored by. Once we do that, and we can go after guests, and we can have a bigger team that's like sourcing guests. We can do all that stuff. Thing. And then we move to a city where people come to with regularity. Like the, Richmond, great city, love my city and area, but not exactly on the path, When you think about getting like big guests.
Oh, there's no pass through.
LA, Atlanta, like where you've got that big pass through there. So we're not guest driven. But we hope you love what we're doing. So please don't email me about your guest pitch, because we're just not doing that right now. But we love you.
Well, and thank you for listening. Yes. Thanks for coming.
For those of you who listen, thank you for listening. We're super excited. Everything's growing. People are coming back week after week. If you have friends, colleagues, people who can benefit from what we're doing, please share the podcast with them. Find us on YouTube as well if you want to see our faces and facial expressions that go along with things here. Otherwise, we're happy to have you. Well, actually, we do. If you're on Spotify, you have the option to listen or view, because our feed is video. So you can actually watch this on YouTube visually, or on Spotify, or on CoryMosley.com. We post it there as well. So otherwise, keep listening, keep growing. And this has been another episode of the Grow Business Podcast. I'm Cory Mosley. Oh, I don't get anything for that. Okay. Oh, that's right. He just does it at the end. I don't know. I forget sometimes.
Yeah, right.
Willie H is in trouble. PIP program for Willie H. On behalf of myself and LG 007 and Willie H for the time being, we will see you next week. Willie H, take us out, unless you forget. Woo! PIP program for Willie H today. I don't know. Yeah, everybody's napping. Gonna get some strong coffee. He doesn't drink coffee anymore, bro. Get him something.
Oh man.
Something
God
caffeinated. Maybe double caffeinated.
Yeah, if you ain't drinking coffee, God bless you. You're a stronger man than I am.
He drinks a lot of tea though. Yeah, my tea bill is through the roof.
Like I said, God bless you. You're a stronger man than I am.
You don't drink tea?
I mean, I will, but not as a replacement.
What, by force?
Well, I mean, if
Here, drink that.
Exactly. I grew up
tea-boarded. You got to get tea-boarded.
In the South, we drank a lot of sweet tea. I mean, but...
No, that doesn't count.
Yeah, I know. It's like sugar. It's a sugar delivery system is what it is.
Yeah. Tea was created by the Domino's Sugar Company, allegedly.
I had an uncle that worked out in western Nebraska. He worked for Great Western, which is a sugar company.
Oh, okay.
But it was a beet sugar. They got it instead of cane, it was beets because they grew the beets out.
Makes sense.
And in the Midwest and the western
goes
part
to
of the
waste.
state. Right, exactly. And then so it was beet sugar as opposed to cane sugar. But yeah.